Hey everybody, Karen from Ask the Spirit Guides. I hope you're doing well today. So we are going to be having a conversation about martial law, and I've got some summary to fill us in, myself included, on so we understand exactly what martial law is and kind of what's been being discussed over the last couple weeks. And then I'm going to ask the Lead Team Collective for the questions that we have about martial law. Okay, so these are questions from the community. We have filled in some gaps based on that. So we do a post out on the channel here. Crackle, crackle, my voice. If you have notifications on, you have to be a subscriber and then turn notifications on. If you do that, then you will get the posts when we put a post out for questions, okay, based on different topics. Okay, so you can totally participate in those. But let's talk a little bit first about some comments that I saw from the Trump video, the Trump health video. And I just want folks to know, especially if you're new here, for those of you who are not new here, you have seen the progression of our community conversations for the last 10 months. And it's interesting to me when somebody comes into the community at this point, which is awesome when new people come. But if you're doing that on any community, if you're popping in on any creator or anyone who's facilitating conversation about something, if you're doing that, but not giving yourself time to see the history of what that community has been discussing for a while, I would just hold back on comments until you have a bigger picture. So, and again, these were just a few comments. There may have been a lot more, but my nephews tend to weed those out. So there may have been a lot of pushback on this. So yesterday when I did the Trump health video, I asked a few questions on whether the same type of thing happened in the Biden administration, okay? And it's interesting to me. I'm actually quite calm about this because it's really interesting to me. The more I raise my vibration, which is something we've been working on in the last 10 months in this community, because what's going on in the world has lowered our vibration such a significant amount that we have had to work very hard in moving our vibration back up. Right? And I come, if you've been here for a while, I go up and I go back down, I go up and I go back down, depending on what's going on, depending on the astrology, depending on my own natal chart, your natal chart. You got to take those kind of things into consideration, right? So what I do know is a few things, and I will stand by these things, okay? If you are not willing, I know that 45, I'm actually going to start calling them 45 again, because I truly do not believe, after all the research I've done and all the listening I've done on both sides of the aisle, on whatever the Smart Elections and Truth Alliance, that he won the election. I really don't believe that. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't care, but I don't believe it. So I am going to call him 45 because I think he is only 45. So that's what I'll be calling him from now on. Because I've also moved away from, although it's fun sometimes, I've moved away from calling names, and we've had conversations about that. It's a very low vibration thing to call people by, it doesn't matter who they are. Yeah, he's a total a-hole, but, to keep calling him names, sometimes we need to laugh about it. And like the memes that Newsom puts out are amazing and they're hilarious. But I'm trying to stay in this space of being able to observe. If you guys listen to Venia from my near-death experience, A to Z, I'll post her, anytime I talk about a channel, I'll post it in the description and pin it to the description. I better actually write that down because I do forget to do it. Venia. Okay. Anyway, so she continually reminds us to observe without absorbing. And I'm getting better and better and better. Again, it doesn't mean I'm not going to slip like in 2 days, and I'll come on and tell you when I do. But I'm feeling awfully calm right now. I don't know why. It's weird. And Faye, my astrologer and our community astrologer, she's been sending me emails. I have to look at Faye. I have to look into those. I read the one you sent me yesterday a little in more detail. So my chart in particular is showing something quite unusual, she says. So I have to study it a little bit. But anyways, remember, those kind of things are going to affect how you're feeling. Okay. So anywho, so the things I do know, my goal will be to continue to facilitate this community and those who want to continue exploring topics with me, that my goal will always be to continue to raise our vibration. My goal will always be to see things from different perspectives. I always believe, and if you've been around the channel for a while, you know for sure that I do not believe there is anything that's black and white. Okay? There is so many layers to all of us individually, to systems, to Earth. I mean, freaking people have been on Earth for millions of years. There's so much going on. So I try to stay in the gray zone, and because when I'm not in the gray zone is when my vibration lowers. So you might want to look at that yourself. That's just for me. I know that's what happens when I'm not in the gray zone, because if I think, all that's going on in the world is Trump being an a-hole and scamming everybody, there is a lot of other things going on in the world. And there's a reason why he's doing what he's doing from an astrological perspective, from a karma perspective, from a helping all of us see things from different angles. Okay. So yeah, we have to thank him, even though that's so hard. He's still an a-hole. I get it. But we do have to thank his higher self for helping us see how our systems have not been working in the United States since the beginning. You cannot build a country with slaves and their ancestors still live here. And I'm going to go back to Native Americans too. Their ancestors still live here, generation after generation after generation, and we have never said, I am sorry. So do not think that this is extremely complicated, and I'm going to getting on my high horse there a little bit. I don't mean to be on a high horse. I'm just very clear about certain things. And it's okay if you're not as clear as me on these things. It is okay. You can disagree with me. Let's be kind. That's all we ask. We're all just exploring things. But from my experience, and there's gray in how I'm talking about this stuff. Okay. So we've got that going on. And we've done some apologizing and paying back to Native Americans. But did we? I mean, really look at what we have done to the Native American culture. If you look, I'm not saying totally 100%, again, gray, but a lot of it is based on gambling, alcoholism. And so are the Native Americans feeling good about living in the United States? That's the question. Do the Native Americans feel good, like they're thriving in the United States? If the answer is no, then we have changes to make. Do Black Americans feel good and comfortable living in the United States? If the answer is no, then we have changes to make. Do everybody, okay, you see what I mean? Okay, so that being said, Trump and the regime, which I believe it is a regime, are uncovering a lot of things, they don't mean to, but they are. I am so much more aware of things than I was 10 months ago because he has forced me to do that. He has forced me to do that because he's so ridiculous. Okay? What I do know, and I know this is gray still, what I do know is if you are not willing to look at the other side of government, the whole thing, then you are missing part of the lesson and the awakening, if we're going to call it that. I'm trying not to use that word, but you're missing part of it, which I understand there are some people are still in anger, and I get it. I get it. Stay there until you're ready to, but you don't need to be in anger to continue acting on things. Okay. So if you come into my comments when I ask a question of the SGs about Biden, let's say, or about the Democrats, and then you are so put off by that, take a look at why you're so put off by it. Because I'll tell you what I have learned over the last 10 months. Well, first of all, I am not in a cult. I am not in a governmental cult, one way or the other. If you are not willing to look at the other and you're just coming in and you're like lambasting someone, again, there's just a couple people, there might have been more, I don't know, lambasting someone who has literally been on camera completely honest about how I feel about the Trump regime. And now I'm starting to realize there were a lot of things I didn't know about the entire structure, about the entire system. So if you don't think we need to look at the entire system, I will tell you, I believe you're wrong. Okay. The more I have looked at things. If you don't believe that the Democrats, that party has had anything to do over the last 50 years with where we are today, you are wrong. That to me is black and white right now. Just that part, So just saying, if you're going to hang out here, I will continue to explore what I am uncovering as the bigger picture of like, whoa, this is not just the Republicans. This is the entire system. And do I believe that Democrats have better values when it comes to politics? Yes, when it comes to politics. Of course I do. You all know that if you've been around here, you know that's true. But we are not going to make changes if we continue to see the world the way we've been seeing it prior to Trump. Okay? That's all I'm going to say on that. So I love when people like, I've never said this before, but if you're going to get up in my comments, just take a breather. Make sure you have enough perspective of what we've been discussing here in the community. I am a facilitator of conversation. Am I always right? Hell no. Come on. I never even think I'm right or wrong. I just am exploring things. Okay. So, but always take a look at yourself. And here's the thing. What I find really interesting is people who spend more of their energy digging at people who are doing this kind of work to facilitate and look at things from different angles, spirituality, whatever. We're just all growing together. What I find interesting, or I think my first reaction was to one comment, really. I only saw 2 comments, but my first reaction, and you guys don't need to defend me or anything. I know I know that will end up flooding the zone in the comments, but you don't need to do that. We have way more interesting things to talk about here. But what are you doing besides, what are you doing besides just being angry? What are you doing besides just being angry, and what kind of impact are you making right now? So I have taken a lot of risk to personally just to be as open as I am here about what I'm learning. You guys know I'm so far from perfect. We also are so far from perfect. But I admit every mistake I make here. You know, I can't pronounce words. I don't edit. And for people, what are you doing? What are you doing? What kind of impact are you actually making besides just getting on and leaving weird comments for people? What are you doing? What are you doing to make an impact besides just complaining? Probably better to get off the comments and go do something. Go do something. And I'm not saying people aren't, but come on. Use your time better. Use your time better. Okay, so I better put the time that we're starting the martial law on here. Let's see what time. So we'll go at 16:30 time. Okay, but anyways, thank you for listening. Okay, so let's go ahead. And the other thing, actually, you know, I saw a couple comments. Every once in a while, I'll see a comment. I don't see a lot of comments because my nephews work on that, because if I saw them, I probably wouldn't continue doing this because it would be hard for me as a feeler, extroverted feeler, it'd be hard for me. So, but I did every once in a while. Usually I see just really positive comments because those are the ones that they tend to keep around for me to see. And that's important for me. It's important for me to keep my vibration high. And then you don't get too many of these kind of little discussions, right? Because if I see stuff that, you know, then I'm like, I can spend all my time talking about that kind of stuff. So, what was I going to say about that? Oh, I saw somebody, there's a couple of people who are kind of digging at me about this being, a bias. Like so when we start doing the martial law, that, you know, I have bias or whatever, and I'm getting the answers like that. So that may be true. I don't know. I've never said it's not, ever. And then someone said, yeah, I'm annoyed, Karen, making comments in between. Well, that is what I do. And I'm a facilitator of conversation here. So, and I'm also an extroverted feeler. So I'm going to extrovert things that I think. So that's who I am. And this may not be the right place for you if you don't enjoy that, and that's totally okay. I'm totally okay with that. But what I am going to do is I am going to try this. I have to write it into my prayer that I do for the lead team. I will ask for them to clear any of my biases before we do this. All I can do is ask that. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I do believe in the clearings that they do. I have a whole playlist on clearings. And so many people get so much positivity out of those clearings. So I know that they'll do what they can. Okay. So I'm going to give that a try. Today, I don't have it written into the prayer, but I'll mention it. Okay. So I close my aura to all but my higher self, the God consciousness, my guides, guardians, the lead team collective, and only those of the highest and purest light, and ask Archangel Michael to please protect my channel, your channel, our community, the lead team collective, so it is only of the highest and purest light. And please clear any of my personal biases towards the questions and the answers that are in front of me. So is that possible to do? Yes. Okay. So when you're answering, I want it to be, obviously, I think this is the case all the time, but I could be totally wrong. And, you know, a lot of people will say they're using their dowsing rods when I'm doing this and they get the same answer, but there may be bias in them too, depending on what they're thinking about. Okay. So I will just please clear my channel so that I can just be an open channel to the truth as best as possible in this current timeline. Okay. So understanding what is really going on without my personal opinion, even if I share my personal opinion throughout the outline. Okay. Yes. Okay. Awesome. All right. So we'll see. Okay. But I do appreciate that perspective just in case. I figured why not do the clearing, you know? Okay, so lead team, and if you're wondering who the lead team collective is, it's a collective of all of our spirit teams. I asked them on the pendulum for a name. So all of our spirit teams in the community. Some of the spirit teams, we each have our own spirit teams. Some of them have joined the lead team collective, and some of them are waiting for you to give permission for them to join. So if you want your spirit team to be a part of the lead team, then just let them know. Let them know. Tell them right now if you want them to be a part of it. So, okay. So lead team, hello. I've already talked to my guides today. Have I? Maybe I haven't. Well, thank you all for all your guidance and support. We really appreciate it individually and collectively. At least I do. If you want to show some appreciation towards them, you guys, I'm sure they would appreciate that. I'll just say the word appreciation over and over again. So lead team, we've got some questions in front of us regarding martial law and what's going on with the 45 regime. Yes. Okay. Is there anything in front of us that would not be in our best interest to know at this time? No. Okay. So as always, please just refrain from answering. Yes. Okay. So let me just give a little bit of background here. So it's been about 2 weeks. Crackle, crackle. My voice is crackling a little bit. It's been about 2 weeks since the military meeting with our nation's top generals and admirals took place on Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. The president's suggestion to use U.S. cities like Portland and Chicago as training grounds for the military has raised concerns about the current 45 regime declaring martial law. All right, so let's take a look at a little historical snapshot. So in U.S. history, martial law has been imposed 15 times. I didn't know that. Did you guys know that? 3 times by the British between 1774 and 1776, which is fascinating to me because on Friday, my husband and I are going to Boston for the week. So it's going to be interesting. We are going to go to the No Kings, and the No Kings protest in Boston is in a park where it was like the beginning of the revolution, basically. So it's kind of interesting that I'm going to be there during a No Kings. And the revolution is about them not wanting to be under the king. So I find this very fascinating. Like, why am I going to Boston? Like, what's taking me there? It's kind of interesting. So 3 times, so martial law 15 times, 3 times by the British between 1774 and 1776 to try and suppress and weaken colonial resistance. 7 times by state governors, mayors, and local leaders between 1843 and 1898. So that's like a 50-year span during events like the Great Chicago Fire and labor strikes. More recently, 61 years ago, the governors of Maryland and Alabama declared martial law in 1963 and 1964 to address escalating racial tensions and civil unrest. The U.S. military declared martial law twice. In 1814 and through 1815, General Andrew Jackson declared it in New Orleans to defend the city during the Battle of New Orleans. It was declared also by the military in 1941 to 1944, so 3 years in Hawaii, following the attack on Pearl Harbor, approved by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, FDR. The U.S. president has personally used this power only once in 249 years. During the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln suspended the right of habeas corpus, which followed the military, well, which allowed the military to detain civilians. Okay. The Supreme Court later ruled this was unconstitutional in areas where civilian courts were still functioning. So let's find out. The first question is about that summary. Okay. So lead team, does the summary above provide an accurate snapshot of instances of martial law in U.S. history? Yes. Okay. So legal and current situation check-in. Martial law is defined as the temporary replacement of civilian government by military rule and the suspension of civilian legal processes. So that's interesting, like the courts probably, civilian legal processes. Historically, it has been declared in the U.S. only during times of war, domestic insurrection, or major civil unrest where civilian courts were not functioning. Okay, question number 2. Is the U.S. currently in wartime? No. Is there a domestic insurrection occurring anywhere at this time in the U.S.? No. Are any civilian courts in the U.S. today unable to function due to major civil unrest in their area? No. Do any other situations exist in the U.S. today? They're already saying no, it's funny. To warrant martial law being declared in localized areas? No. Do any other situations exist in the U.S. today to warrant martial law nationwide? No. Okay. Recently, Trump has deployed the National Guard to certain cities and publicly threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act to suppress protests against federal actions, like those by ICE. So there's been protests, obviously, people protesting ICE, calling these protests criminal insurrection or rebellion to justify a military response. So lead team, is that summary accurate? That Trump has deployed the National Guard, we know that, yes, to invoke the Insurrection Act, is he doing it to suppress protests? Yes. Okay. So the summary above is accurate? Yes. Is there anything not accurate about it? No. Okay. Trump has used his authority to federalize state National Guard troops under Title X without the consent of state governors. These actions have been met with legal challenges from states like Illinois and Oregon, with federal judges blocking the deployments and stating the president's claims of an insurrection were unmoored. It's the word they use, unmoored, M-O-O-R-E-D, or simply untethered to the facts. He's unbelievable. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing what we have to go through as a collective to finally clear to be, just finally clear the crap that's been going on for so long. It's amazing what we have to go through. Obviously, we didn't get this on our own, you guys. So, as our ancestors and so on. Okay, so is the summary regarding the federalized, anyways, that summary I just read, I'm not going to read the whole thing again. Is that summary accurate? Yes, really wide swing on that. Is there anything about that summary that's not accurate? No. Okay. All right. So at least we're on the same page. At least in terms of what's being said and what is, what are the facts? Let's try to stick to facts as best as possible. Will federal judges continue to block any future attempts by Trump to deploy the National Guard to U.S. cities? Yes. Well, the question is, will the governors try to deploy the National Guard in some of their own cities? Yes. Will this mostly be in red states? Yes. Will judges block those attempts by governors? No. So not all. Okay. So that was about deploying the national. Okay. So there will be some governors in red states who deploy the National Guard that judges will approve. Is that correct? Yes. I guess maybe the law is that governors can deploy the National Guard. Yes. I mean, it is their, okay. Okay. Well, yeah. If they're doing it by law, they can do it without the law or with the law. So, okay. Is Trump's true purpose in invoking Title 10 any of the below? All right, you ready, LTC? All right, an attempt to suspend our right to assembly. Yes. To suppress peaceful protests. Yes, they know it's coming. They know it's coming. To suppress the freedom of the press. Yeah, and I just saw that some of the press have been, getting blasted with whatever they're using by what ICE is like, targeting the press and clergy. So it's, yeah. So what's that all about? Well, yeah, it's to suppress the freedom of the press. Yes. To allow for the military to detain civilians. Yes. Does Trump really believe there is civil unrest in cities such as Los Angeles? No. Well, the question is what does he believe is civil unrest? Does he believe there is civil unrest in Portland? No. Does he believe there's civil unrest in Chicago? No. Does he believe, this is not on here, but does he believe there will be civil unrest in these cities the more people understand what's going on? Yes. Okay. So that's, could be part of it. All right, let's check in with the top generals and admirals about this. So lead team, let's tap into the energy of the generals and the admirals for the following questions. Do the majority of generals and admirals believe there is legal justification, they're already saying no, to enforce martial law on U.S. citizens? No. If asked to swear an oath of personal loyalty to the president, will the majority of military leaders resist on constitutional grounds? Yes. Has Trump thought about bringing the military against U.S. citizens in the form of martial law? Yes. Would martial law be in the country's best interest at this time from a spiritual perspective? No. Would martial law in the country's best interest? Would martial law be in the country's best interest at this time to help us continue to crack the old systems in order to rebuild everything? No. Okay, would it bring the majority into a place of unity if martial law were called? Yes. Does that mean that it will be, well, do we need enough people on both sides to realize we need unity among the people? Is that happening right now? Yes. If we have, let's just say, not enough people see that we need unity among the people, would martial law be an option for the universe to create that? Yes. But are we doing it ourselves without martial law at this point? Yes. Okay, good. So there's enough people who are getting jolted. Hey, I'm jolted. you have to admit, I don't want anybody here. If anybody here is like, I've known the truth all along about everything. Yeah, no, 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 no. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. In fact, I've always been like this. I don't know if it's because I'm an Aries or just because of my personality type. I have no idea. But anytime someone's like demands that this is the only way to see something, I will never believe you. It's part of my nature, you know? So, because again, you know how I feel about there's just there's so much layers that we will never the only person who really understands, and I wouldn't say person, well, I would say the people who, spirit, they know what's going on. So unless you're in the other realm right now and that's where you're living, then they know what's going on. So source knows what's going on, right? Okay, let's see. Would millions of Americans fill the street if Trump declares martial law? Yes. Will Trump's overstepping into military power be a catalyst to remove him from office? No. Is that because he won't be overstepping? Will Trump overstep into military power? No. No. Okay. How likely is it that martial law will happen in the United States in 2025? Is it likely? No. Is it likely that martial law will happen in the US in 2026? No. Okay. Entertainment purposes only. I didn't say that in the beginning, but entertainment purposes only. I guess that was the last question. And all allegedly. So, all right, you guys. Well, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for, I don't know, was I scolding? Was I just giving some perspective? I'm not sure. If I scolded, then I apologize for, I just was being very clear about things this morning. But I never, ever want to scold. I want to thank the person who sent me this. I think I wrote your name on here. No, I did not. Oh my gosh. You guys remember when we did, I don't even remember. It was an SG session with the lead team on myths. I think it was like myths and stuff. And the word Sasquatch. So I kept going, Sasquatch. I just think that word is hilarious. Sasquatch. And anyways, so this person obviously watched this and she found this for me and sent it to me. How cute is that? I'm going to stick that right here. But I wanted to say thank you before I stuck it on there. So Sasquatch, you guys. I'll try to find that video and post it right now, right here, if you want to watch it. Okay, have a good one. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.